Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined as always by my guy Nate Weitzer, holding it down on the East Coast, running through a pretty small Thursday night slate here, only 3 games this particular video. We're going to be taking a look at those Raptors taking on the Sixers in Philly. Nate's got another great article up on playpicks.com for you guys. Make sure you check out all of those games, best bets, and some player props for you that we'll also be running through here. And if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we're about to jump into. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, well, starting with that game, the Sixers are minus 2.5 at the moment. It's fluctuated between 2 and 3 at this point, and the total continues to drop a little bit down to 210.5 at the moment. The other 2 games tonight, Pacers are plus 9.5 right now at Utah, with that total at 216.5, and then the Heat plus 4 at the Clippers to 11.5 there. All 3 road teams are on back-to-backs on this slate, so that's an interesting angle to think about for each of them. And for this game, I think it's something you can kind of bank on with the Raptors. They're now 3-17 with a rest disadvantage. That's straight up, not against the spread. Since last season started, very comfortable cover for the Celtics last night. I believe it was wire to wire. And it's just, in this matchup, it's actually, I feel even more confident in Philly than I did in the Celtics, probably because I wear my heart on the sleeve with those C's. But Philly, it's really, in recent years when Joel Embiid sits, they've been just helpless, right? But they have Andre Drummond now, who's actually a very competent backup center. As much as you've said he puts up hollow stats, I mean, everything's hollow when you're on the Detroit Pistons for 10 years or whatever it was. So they're not losing much in terms of paint protection and rebounding with him in there. And their offense has been very fluid against a Bucks team that's obviously defending champs, starting to figure it out, had Drew Holiday back. They were going back and forth, toe-to-toe down the wire, and really had some impressive showings from Maxey, from Shake Milton, from George Niang off the bench. I don't think they're going to have much trouble scoring on the Raptors, who are going to have tired legs, of course, on this second leg, who have struggled really defensively even without that rest disadvantage. They're down to 24th in defensive rating over their last 3 games, and allowing opponents to shoot 40% from 3 in that span, which is definitely going to play into their hands. Philly, their pace only ramped up a little bit without Embiid, but it was much more free-flowing possessions, many more 3-point attempts. Seth Curry is questionable, so that would hurt their ability to hoist from deep. But I think they still have an ability to get to the rim with Maxey leaning there, and I guess there's a chance Tobias Harris comes back, which would also give them another element on offense. Either way, I think that they kind of sniffed that win without Embiid in their last game, and I think this time they will actually get it, with Toronto just too gassed from their situation. It's the third, I think it's the 5th game in 6 nights, and second straight road to back to back. It's just a tough spot for a young team.
Yeah, agreed. And Philly's a tough place to play. And while we're recording this, we mentioned there's actually no player props up for Philly because of the fact that Curry and Tobias Harris are questionable. I mean, if both those guys are out, it's a little bit tougher to feel as strongly. But still, this is a game where what we didn't really think of ahead of the Bucks and Sixers matchup is the way that Philly's offense will spread out a little bit. Their pace of play will rise a little bit. And that would lead to potential overs. And for this one, rather than eyeing any kind of totals, I'm actually looking at a couple guys on Philly, like Tyrese Maxey, who really stepped things up. Drummond has a really small sample size at this point in terms of playing with Philly and playing when Embiid sits out, but we already know that he's averaging near 20 rebounds a game in 3 without Embiid, and averaging about 14 or 15 points a game in that span as well. So as you mentioned, he's providing as a serviceable backup. I could still technically call those hollow stats because they haven't won either of those games, but that's not fair to the big man. He's at least putting in the numbers that help them in the way that they win. And okay, they're 1-1 without him. Either way, Tyrese Maxey is another guy I'm eyeing. Really was able to dive a little bit into what he does when both Simmons Simmons and Embiid sit out, he averages about 20 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists a game in 5 games in his career without both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Shout out StatViews for that one. And really, I think, that's going to be the sort of the style of offense that is tweaked a little bit. It's interesting because Drummond's still able to play in a pretty fast pace. You might think that things would slow down a little bit with him, but since the offense doesn't run through him now, it's running through those guards and the wings for Philly. You see their pace go up from about 96 on the season, which is dead last, to about 99, which is about middle of the pack when Joel Embiid has sat so far, as opposed to, as we said, that 96 pace of play when he's in there. And their 3-point attempts go way up. Right, they shoot 34 a game when he's not. When Embiid is in the game, they've averaged about almost 40 plus since he hasn't played this season. 43 3-point attempts in their loss to Milwaukee. Only managed to hit 13 of those, but you got to like their chances, especially if Tobias Harris comes back. He'll be the best player on the floor, in my opinion, at that point, and somebody that can control the game a lot more for them. So rather than eye any kind of points when stars are out, the offenses change, the pace can change, the vibe of the whole game sort of changes, right? And so this is going to be a little bit faster. Not sure how I feel, close to that total, but if, with Philly only -2, Toronto's incredibly bad, performances on 0 days rest and with that rest advantage, I feel really good about Philly's offense being able to put up points against Toronto tonight. Even if it's not more than, let's say, 110, that's still enough to beat a Toronto team that, isn't exactly an offensive firepower.
No, I would take the over, especially if it creeps down to like 208, 207, which it tends to do with these Philly and Toronto stats. Like everybody's seeing, they've gone under in 5 of the last 6 meetings, or Philly goes on, has been under in 5 of 7 home games. But it is different without Embiid. It's different in terms of pace on offense and in terms of the rim protection on the other end. Toronto just got Pascal Siakam back, and he has not necessarily found his rhythm yet, but he could in this matchup. And one guy I'm definitely looking at is Scotty Barnes, whether Siakam plays or not. I mean, there's a chance he just sits on a back-to-back as he works his way in there. But Scotty Barnes, who was one of our player prop picks yesterday, topped his points rebounds by like the 3rd minute of the 3rd quarter. He's just blowing past expectations right now. It's pretty smart money to bet on for rookie of the year at this juncture, because he's been a lot more efficient, a lot more productive on both ends than, say, Jalen Green, who's just chucking out in Houston. But in any case, his prop only 14.5 points and 22.5 points rebounds. And really what I'm thinking of the over is like, yeah, they went under against a Celtics team that's just lights out defensively right now. But Philly, without Embiid, it was, they gave up over 50 paint points to Giannis and company, of course. But Toronto can also attack the rim like that, especially with Siakam back. I think they can get consistent points down low to help you really get over that total. And then, with Maxey being able to help counter, to lead that offense on the other end, I think we can get to about 210 points.
Yeah, it's actually been bet up from 207 in terms of that total. This feels like a little bit more of a game from last season than this season in terms of, the style of play that I think we're going to see a ton of threes. And that scares me just from the standpoint that it's a now make or miss league once again, more so than it is this year where defense actually matters. It's a make or miss league from the standpoint last year that, no one was allowed to play defense. So it's just about whether or not you made or missed shots. And this feels a little bit like that. Don't think there's going to be a ton of inside out. It's huge for Philly if Tobias Harris plays to give them another form of scoring outside of that drive, dribble, kick, or pass down low and have a kick back out from Drummond standing down there. So we'll see what happens with the sort of the energy and the vibe of this game in terms of the pace of play. As we said, a little bit different when the stars are out and you're not expected. You can't expect and rely on exactly how they play offense each time to be that game plan going into tonight. So either way, Philly for both of us, and Scotty B, who continues to really impress. Love to be able to mention him. So that is all the time that we have for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you for each of these 3 games that are going on tonight on tonight's Thursday night slate. Until we see you next, happy betting.